Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting to me. Like, I wonder if most superheroes don't kind of have this past they never quite got over.
You know, I think that part of the idea is that a superhero, if he gets powers, he uses these powers in a way that he feels an obligation. So
right,
I do.
And there's got to be it's got to be personal, or it's hard to buy.
I do.
Right?
It is a little hard to buy if there's no tragedy behind it.
If it's just and I'm not sure it always has to be a tragedy, but still, it's like, okay, I got powers. Now I can go go save people, and I can go stop bad guys. As soon as one bad, terrible thing happens to you, I mean, look at Kick-Ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing, like he didn't really have a tragic past, right?
Yeah, he just up and decided he wanted to be a superhero.
Right, and then bad things happened to him, and he considered quitting.
Which he had a very good reason.
Or did he just go on? I've only seen the film once, and I didn't read the comics, so I don't entirely remember.
To my recollection, I believe he decided to be a superhero, got the crap kicked out of him.
That's right.
And then got this ridiculously contrived superpower where he couldn't feel any pain.
That's
and
true.
Suddenly he has like a metal skeleton.
Okay, thanks. I just forgot because I really want to see that movie again because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that he might, after he got the crap kicked out of him, would he have continued?
But
had he not gotten that ability?
Here's this even. Was he really a superhero? Because if you look at the people who the movie was really about, they did have a tragic past. And that's why the movie was so good to us. Hit Girl and Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Because Big Daddy had a very tragic past.
Big Daddy was mostly Punisher.
Yeah. I mean, they made him look a little more like Batman, but I think that's kind of the idea.
They were mixing it up, but I mean, he definitely had that Punisher thing going on, and I thought this is kind of funny, but Hit Girl struck me as being almost like All-Star Robin.
And yet Big Daddy was so much more interesting than All-Star Batman.
Oh well, yeah, there's that, but
something that I think is interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like. Maybe, just maybe, the reason that a character doesn't necessarily need a tragic past, and yet they have the obligation to use their superpowers, is sort of this a metaphor for civic duty. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you have some sort of obligation to your king and your country.
Well, I think that's part of. I think Spider-Man does kind of have that to a point. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that is the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing, where if you have that ability, you really ought to be using it. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's interesting that there may be that other angle, kind of, but I think that certainly trumps that other angle is because think of all the times in the comics where Spider-Man tries to stop being Spider-Man, but then bad things are happening to people and he's there at the right time and he's like, I can't just sit here with spider sense and amazing agility and web shooting and all this and all this stuff and super strength and let bad things happen to people.
I think that's one of the reasons that I think the Hulk is almost more interesting. Because Bruce Banner does have the power to do something about it, and he can direct it to some extent, but it goes wildly out of control.
Right, and then that gets really interesting because what do you do? I mean, are you helping more by not using it, or are you helping more by risking it?
Yeah,
and that's tough.
That's one of the reasons that I think the Hulk is a much more interesting character, or at least different, and that's why I like him. I mean, you look at Batman, you look at Superman. They all had people who died in their past. If the Hulk, I'm certain they've added people who died in the past. But when you get right down to it, all he was a scientist who had an experiment that went out of control.
Right.
And pretty much, the problem isn't so much the people that died in his past; it's the people that have died in his present.
Yeah. That's absolutely right, and so it's not even so much that he's atoning for something or anything like that. It was in the Ang Lee movie a little bit, but it's but that's they made up a lot of stuff there. But just as far as normal Hulk is just sort of okay. I'm responsible for this because it's in me. Mm-hmm. But what do I do with it?
I mean, when it comes right down to it,
if he can control the Hulk, if he can get to the point where he can completely control the monster and then just turn into it, and now he's still Bruce Banner with the Hulk's body, now he can.
Now he's on the same footing as Spider-Man.
Exactly.
He has to do whatever he has to do because he feels the civic duty.
Right.
But that civic duty, paired with the danger,
with the monster part,
that's really interesting to me, and. I've collected some Hulk.
It's like owning giant rabid dogs. You know what I mean? That like get out every so often and go hurt things, and then you're like, well, do I put them down or I keep them and try to build a bigger fence? But it's kind of like that, isn't it? You know, it's
exactly. That's a good point.
You know, it's like I've got this thing inside me, and you know, if I get ticked off, then and the thing about it is, okay, tell me this because you know Hulk a lot better than me.
I wouldn't say that, but go ahead.
Well, you've read Hulk, and I have not read much Hulk.
Okay.
In some of the stories you've read in the comics, because the old TV show and then the two more recent movies and stuff like that, I always feel like Bruce Banner is never really portrayed as being an angry person, and yet he's. If the Hulk is going to come out anytime he becomes kind of angry, it seems like it would make a lot of sense if he had a little bit of a temper, a little bit of an anger management problem. And I've never seen that with him. And so I wonder if he had that much in the comics, or if it was just he gets in situations that would make anybody angry, so he gets angry.
Well, it varies. I mean, especially in recent comic books, because if you look at the character progression from what he started as to what he is now, originally it wasn't even anger that changed him into the Hulk.
Oh, it wasn't. What was it?
Night. It was basically a werewolf story with Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein mixed into it.
Wow.
So it would be a particular time of day, he would turn into the Hulk, and then he would have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But as time went by, they changed it up, and they decided it would be anger. Now, maybe my sources are completely wrong, I don't know, but I believe I'm correct about this. Mm-hmm. So, so Bruce Banner, I think, has largely kept his characterization, and as just being this scientist, he's predominantly a muted guy. And over time, I think what they ended up doing was changing Bruce Banner from being this mousy, muted guy into a guy who's like a ball of repressed anger.
Right.
So you get in his face, and he gets furious, but he's not going to do anything. And the Hulk is just his way of lashing out. Because there have been ridiculous storylines where, like, this actually happened. I read it in a Wizard. I'm not kidding. The Hulk is, or Bruce Banner's walking in the rain, and then he slips and he falls, and he gets furious, and he turns into the Hulk, and the Hulk tries to smash the rain. I think he yells, "Hulk smash rain!"
That's awesome.
It's a really funny thought, but that shows what they've turned Bruce Banner into, and I'm not against that because that's interesting to me. The idea of the animal within. I mean, if you watch Peckinpah movies, they do the same thing. So there's this creature that's right underneath the surface, and for most people, I think this is almost an allegory for just not allegory, but the symbolism for the human spirit. But underneath the surface, there is always this lurking creature, this anger, this hate that people will tuck away and put into the deepest cockles of their liver. And say, we're going to keep that right there, and I'm going to try to drink you away. Mm-hmm. So, I'm making humanity sound like alcoholics. But you get what I'm getting at here, right?
No, I do. I'm disturbed, but I get it.
Wow, Vince is a really angry guy. Yes, he is.
Vince smash. So, obviously, lots of different superheroes, have lots of different motivations, but I think it's interesting to see that some of them are maybe a little bit more similar than you think they were. I don't mean to oversimplify it. Certainly, there's a huge difference between Superman and Batman, and that's why it's explored so often. In the comics, and there's obviously a giant difference between Spider-Man and Daredevil.
But even then, I mean, Superman's planet died, therefore his parents died, therefore he has an idea. He understands what Batman's going through, but Batman was there,
exactly.
And his parents died.
And Superman wasn't.
So even though there is a dramatic difference, there's still a very similarity. There's still a similarity there.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and go to rants, Vince. What do you have for us?
Alrighty. This has bothered me since I was a kid. Whenever I would read something like, say, a comic book where a character was Cajun, or I would read, say some old fiction where they would use phonetic accents. That bothers me.
Oh, yeah, me too.
They would write it phonetically. And I would sit there for hours trying to figure out whatever the crap this woman was saying in this old Louisiana literature.
Yeah, I can't stand that either.
And I couldn't... Okay, when a teacher would just hand it to me and say, "Here, this is your assignment," and I'm like, "Why are you handing this to me? It's in my book." No. They'd say, "This is your assignment, read this." I would spend hours trying to figure out what this thing said because most of it was written in this this accent. And I'm talking about a particular story, but I don't remember what it was. And that bothers me that I don't remember it at this moment.
There was a time where that was considered to be okay in modern conventions. It's not anymore.
Yeah, that's infuriating.
You saw a lot of that going on, especially in 19th century lit.
Mm-hmm. You know, when I took a fiction writing class, and they told us to write a character's accent, but do not do it phonetically. It had to be word choice.
See,
and I think that's
awesome.
a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think you're not giving your reader enough credit if you spell out for them like that. If you're a good enough writer, you can write the way a person talks and still make it grammatically correct.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things you can do every so often, you know what I mean, that people that have become kind of common usage, especially due to like text speak and internet speak and stuff. You know, where you can spell out gonna, G-O-N-N-A instead of going to, and it's not going to be that hard to read over.
But that's not like, well, it is phonetic.
It is
but
phonetic,
it's not
yeah.
It's generally accepted as slang now.
Yeah, exactly. And slang is a little different than just spelling out something phonetic, and it's just difficult to read. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't flow through a sentence.
Like one of the things that drives me nuts recently, a Southern character, I believe it was Cannonball. I was reading an Uncanny X-Men issue, and Cannonball kept saying as in I'm going to do this. It would be A-H-apostrophe-M.
That's irritating.
And I went, and then I read the full sentence and went, oh, that makes sense. But I still hate you for doing this, Mr. Writer Man. I think it was Scott Lobdell. I think, who doesn't do necessarily bad stuff. He does like these quirky, funny little storylines. But it drives me nuts. I hate that crap.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do my rant, Vince.
Go for it.
Hey, whatever happened to Cool Spot?
Cool Spot.
Whatever happened to the 7-Up Cool Spot?
Oh, yeah.
How come 7-Up no longer has a mascot? And they haven't for years now. And I think that 7-Up was a lot cooler when they had Cool Spot. Like, I think, no, really. Like, nobody talks about 7-Up anymore. I think people probably still drink it, but, like, nobody talks about it. And 7-Up, I mean, Cool Spot was everywhere in the 90s, you know. He had 3 video games, Vince. And they were good too. Like I played them, and they were decent. You know, he had these really cool commercials. And like, when was the last time you saw a 7-Up commercial? Like, I don't know where their advertising went.
They do have these like thirst quenching commercials.
Do they? Because I
don't know if
maybe I just don't watch enough TV.
You spend too much time on Netflix.
and didn't notice it. Maybe that's what it is.
They do have it, but it's all this like lemon lime type of commercial stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, they even changed their logo several years back. I know this is old news. Okay, I'm aware of this, but I miss it. It's a nostalgia thing. And like they don't even have the red dot in their logo anymore. Like now it's a lemon lime thing in between the 7 and the Up. And I don't know. The Cool Spot always struck me as something that had longevity. You know what I mean? It's like Cool Spot was like the tiger for Frosted Flakes, right?
Yeah.
He was like Ronald McDonald. Could you imagine McDonald's without Ronald McDonald?
I mean,
it's like that.
I would say that I feel like it's kind of a 90s thing where you have this whole 90s extreme cool dude attitude that they're trying to inject into 7-Up.
Are you telling me it's that outdated, though?
I don't necessarily think so. Isn't Chester the Cheetah still around?
I think he is.
I mean,
and he still got his sunglasses.
We still
he had a video game, too, but it was really bad.
We still have Chester the Cheetah. We still have the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
So there is still of this cool. Well, I suppose Marlboro Man is a little more timeless.
We don't have we don't have Joe Cool the Camel anymore, but that's because
there was lawsuits.
That's because there were lawsuits and things. Yeah. Well, anyway, Vince, we're all out of time.
Oh.
But thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast, and we'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
Thanks a lot for listening.